frick? I don't know. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jack Sketcher, for resubscribing. It's like we're in the same room. Oh, wait. Hey! No! Don't you dare! Don't you... Mother effer. Don't be rude. Let's focus on... Let's hang out with Roberta. Those two, I feel like bad things would happen. But Roberta, at least we could... And her, I don't know why De Quincy makes me feel weird. I don't trust her. Samantha looked at Roberta. The other girl was sat beside her, her palms spread out, fingers extended. There was a small, white, circular tablet resting in the center of her palm, which trembled slightly at her smallest of movements. Samantha watched as Roberta brought her palm to her mouth and placed the tablet inside it. Then, in a weary manner that suggested she had done this innumerable times before, Roberta picked up a glass of water and swallowed. That was a very descriptive way to describe someone taking a pill. Samantha could not help but feel like something of a voyeur as she watched Roberta swallow. Sorry, that was like, what? But no, we're good. Her throat convulsing slightly. For some reason, Samantha was not sure why. Watching other people take medicine seemed like a deeply intimate invasion of privacy. A little bit? Maybe? Maybe it was because when people fell seriously ill, they were ushered into hospitals, hidden away inside white rooms as though they had something to be ashamed of, some secret to hide. Well, she was being melodramatic. Melodrama was something she excelled at. Always had done. Roberta may have been required to take medicine every other day, but she was hardly knocking on death's door. Roberta was just too sensible to die at an early age. She was not the kind of person who succumbed to illness, no matter how intense. And this particular illness was something many people suffered from, all across the world. Is it your allergies? Are they playing up? Roberta nodded, brushing a few strands of hair out of her eyes as she did so. That's right, I thought they would die down in the winter, and they did for a while, but they've been getting worse lately, or worse again. I suppose spring really is around the corner. Sigh. Spring should be such an enchanting season, but there's just so much pollen everywhere. The English countryside is the worst for it. It's at times like this I'm glad I live in London. Well, if your eyes start to water, you shouldn't rub them. They'll only make it worse. Roberta gave Samantha a withering look. I know that, Samantha. I've had to deal with my hay fever all my life, whilst you have only had to deal with it whilst you have been friends with me. I suppose that's true. Samantha laughed, pressing the tips of her fingers together at her front. Roberta was right. She was almost always right. Why had Samantha tried to offer advice anyway? She had just been trying to be friendly, but it was all quite unnecessary, really. Anyway, Roberta frowned, her lips pursed. It was the expression Samantha knew well, as Roberta often had cause to direct it at her. You seem somewhat restless. You haven't eaten very much either. Are you feeling all right? I'm not hungry. This food killed any appetite I may have had. And even if the food had been delicious, which it decidedly, categorically was not, Samantha doubted she would have been able to eat much of it anyway. She still felt sick. Well, that's certainly true. You should try to eat more, though. We have a busy day tomorrow. We'll be doing a lot of walking. Samantha groaned. She did not even want to think about tomorrow. What was the point in a tomorrow if it was without Lillian? What other purpose did she have to get out of bed at all? She should never have come on this trip. Why had she come on this trip? All Samantha wanted to do was disappear. Like rivulets of water running down the drain. It's kind of weird how fuzzy everything looks. but at the same time, it's sort of meant to just be a background, so I can understand the decision made. So that looks oddly... I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Roberta was kneeling by the side of her bed, unpacking her suitcase. Even though they were only staying in the youth hostel for 2 nights, Roberta was adamant about unfolding her clothes lest they get creased. Samantha did not know why she cared so much. Given this was a school field trip, the only clothes they were allowed to wear was their school uniforms. That and their pajamas. Just who was Roberta trying to impress anyway? Perhaps it was nobody but herself. Roberta's standards had always been incredibly high. Samantha, however, cared less about what she looked like. That should have been evident, given how poorly she had cut her own hair last night, or, to be more precise, this morning. At the moment, Samantha didn't care all that much about anything, not after what Lillian had said. Lillian. Samantha could still remember what Lillian had said, almost word for word. How could she not? Samantha had always hung on every single syllable Lillian Wordsworth spoke. To Samantha, Lillian's words were even more precious than pearls. Even when those words were directed at her, sharp as razors. Even when they cut her close to the bone, between the ribs and through the heart, and made her bleed. Samantha was such a fool. She cherished everything Lillian gave her, even insults. She probably would have thanked Lillian for spitting on her, she was so impossibly enamored. Samantha wished she could forget Lillian's words, erase them from her mind, but she would not allow herself to. She simply couldn't. Trying to forget Lillian would undoubtedly hurt even more than remembering all the cold, callous things she had said. Samantha's head hurt. She tried to focus on a book, clutching it tighter than necessary to stop her hands from shaking. But she couldn't. The words blurred together on the page, no matter how often she blinked, and she kept rereading the same sentences over and over again. Samantha loved reading. Books were released for her, whether they were hardbacks on display in shop windows or ancient tomes with yellowing pages, the insides inscribed with birthday wishes to unfamiliar men or women that were probably long dead. Right now, however, Samantha could not concentrate. She felt so trapped inside her own skull, so depressingly yet defiantly Samantha Taylor Coleridge. She could not even conjure up an image of a water flea, let alone an entire universe. She needed something to distract her. Oh gosh, what the frick was Georgia's voice? Hey, look what I found! That sounded like it might be good enough. Georgia's voice was so exclamatory, one would be forgiven for assuming she had discovered a chest of hidden treasure, and it drew Samantha from her melancholy musings. She closed her book, not even bothering to mark the page she had been on, and set it to one side. Even Roberta lifted her head, distracted from her unpacking. What is it, Byron? You'll never guess, Bobby, my friend. I was just rifling through this cupboard, and I found this. Georgia drew a box from the cupboard and held it out for the other girls to examine. It was tattered, worn by use, and it was covered in dust. It must have been in there for a while. When Georgia blew on the box, dust that had been resting upon it, undisturbed for who knew how long, scattered. It danced through the air like dandelion clocks, ghostly and ethereal. Ooh, pretty. Unlike Samantha, however, Roberta did not much appreciate the transcendent beauty of dust. What are you doing? I haven't finished unpacking my clothes yet. You'll get them dirty. But I'm all the way over here, and you're all the way over there. Lighten up, Bobby. That isn't the point. You should show some more respect for other people's things. Yeah, whatever. Don't, whatever, me. This is serious. And so is this. Look. And with that, Georgia deposited the woe-begone, moth-eaten cardboard box down onto her bed. Samantha got to her feet and moved over to inspect it. So did Percy. Eventually, after a long pause... Oh, fine then. So did Roberta. Upon examining the box, Roberta instantly groaned, pressing one hand against her forehead as though staving off a headache. Not the game of life. Yes, the game of life. Isn't it great? It's terrible. No wonder it got left behind here. It's so tedious. Kind of like life itself, huh? Ha ha, very funny. At least it isn't as dull as Risk. We agree on precious little, but you have to at least concede on that point, Bobby. I happen to like Risk. Of course you do. I shouldn't be so surprised. A dull old maid like yourself would like a dull old game. This is funny, because my dad actually plays Risk. I don't know if he used to play the board game version of it, but they had a PlayStation 2 game version of it, and he still plays that to this day while he's riding his exercise bike. My brother has the board game for it, and of course no one wants to play it with him. Who are you calling old? I'm not that much older than you. I think the game of life is depressing. Depressing? Samantha frowned. The cartoon characters drawn on the box certainly didn't look depressed. They were smiling so widely just looking at them made Samantha's jaw hurt. She had never smiled like that before, not even for a school photograph. Especially not for a school photograph. It's all about money. Whoever has the most money at the end of the game wins. Don't you think that's a rather mercenary way of looking at things? It might be... Sorry, wrong person. It might be mercenary, but that's just the way life is. Don't say that's the way life is as though it makes it so, Georgia. But it's true. You're such a capitalist. We live in a capitalist society. What else can I do? It's eat or be eaten out there. You better buck your ideas up, Percy, before I take a bite out of you. Cut that out! Percy pouted as Georgia chugged on her hair, just as a naughty little boy might. Anyway, I hope those lofty morals of yours won't dissuade you from having a game with me. Why do you even want to play the game of life of all things? It doesn't really suit your image. You seem to be the type who would enjoy chess more. Samantha did not add that was because Georgia seems like the kind of person who would love to preen over her intellect rather than whiling her hours away playing games for young children. Then again, Georgia Byron was full of surprises. Lord Cluedo. The somber murder mystery aesthetic seemed to suit Georgia more than the colorful cartoon faces beaming from the Game of Life box did. Georgia was exactly the kind of person who would find the untimely death of Dr. Black, bludgeoned to death by a candlestick in the billiards room, amusing. Although I do like Cluedo. Cluedo isn't here. We'll have to make do with this instead. You're saying this like we don't have a choice. We don't. I'm bored and I want to play something. Georgia's eyes sparkled mischievously. Unless you would rather do truth or dare, Bobby. I already told you not to call me Bobby, and we are not playing truth or dare. It's so infantile. Huh? Does that mean you have a lot of deep, dark secrets hidden away behind that pretty face of yours? I don't have any secrets, dark or otherwise. I'm just too old to play these silly children's slumber party games. Especially with a person like you. Somebody's touchy. And whose fault do you think that is? You're that afraid you're going to lose, huh? This was, of course, the right thing to say. Roberta's face flushed so intensely, it looked like a broiled radish. Of course not, especially not the game of life. Even a blindfolded monkey could play that. It's just luck. Then why don't you give it a shot? Fine, but just once, and this is only so I can wipe that smug smile off your face. Samantha watched two girls bicker like a spectator at a tennis rally, turning her head back and forth with each successive insult. Did this mean she had to play too? Well, maybe that wouldn't be so bad. Maybe it would help take her mind off Lillian. My throat is going to kill me, and it's only been an hour. Well, almost an hour. Not quite. As it turned out, she did. So did a begrudging Percy. It seems nobody could escape Georgia Byron's whims. The four girls sat together on the floor, still in their school uniforms. It had taken longer to set up the board than usual, mostly because Roberta and Georgia kept arguing. Now the sky outside their window was pitch black. Where had all the time gone? It felt as though it had only been 5 minutes ago that Samantha had been, sitting on the coach, staring out the window as the gray motorway rolled by. I almost said couch again. I don't know why. Maybe her perception of time had been skewed, given she had stayed up so late last night. She yawned, pressing one hand to her mouth. She yawned so hard, for so long, tears began to prick in the corners of her eyes, sharp and salty. At least it helped keep her alert. So, now we need to pick our car. What color do you prefer, Bobby? You know what, Georgia? What? I honestly don't care at all. Well, I'm going to have red. So saying, Georgia picked up the red car and placed it at the starting line. You can have orange, Bobby. Why orange? Because of your hair. It's orange, right? Like goldfish colored? Roberta held a hand up to her scalp, her face flushing as red as Georgia's car. My hair isn't goldfish colored. It's ginger. Then do you want me to call you Ginger now? No, I had enough of that in primary school, and I thought you, of all people, would be able to come up with something more biting than that. I'm going to have the white car. Percy's voice interrupted the two girls before they could start arguing once more. She picked up the white car between the pad of her thumb and forefinger, then set it down by Georgia's. You would choose white, wouldn't you? What does that mean? It means that you're a pure girl, Percy. Good job. I'm sure Harry will be very happy. I feel like you're making fun of me. Then I'll take blue. Samantha had not given much thought into choosing her car and had picked from the remaining colors at random, but now that she thought about it, didn't Lillian wear blue a lot? Do you not see your own uniform colors? Your dress is blue. Roberta's skirt is blue. Percy's skirt is blue. And your brain goes, oh, doesn't Lillian wear a lot of blue? Samantha. And hey, look at my blue. Whee! I love my blue shawl. It's great, it's soft, it's comfortable. Was her subconscious trying to tell her something, or was she just overthinking things? She did that a lot. Samantha shifted slightly, recrossing her legs. All of a sudden, the wooden floorboards underneath her thighs felt rather uncomfortable. Now, we need to take a person peg. All of the girls dutifully chose a pink peg to represent themselves, as was the norm. Georgia, however, was not content to be like everybody else, and instead chose a blue one. Roberta frowned. Is there any reason why you want to play as a man? Who says blue is a boy's color? Girls can wear blue too. Just look at our uniforms. For once, Georgia, you're right. Blue does not have to be a boy's color. Ayo. Not that there was a hint of blue to Georgia's uniform. She may have been wearing the white blouse and pink ribbon, but nothing else in her ensemble was even remotely school regulation. Why did she always wear a black waistcoat anyway? Game, I don't know about you, but that waistcoat ain't black. That's a red. Okay. Roberta sighed. She knew if she asked, Georgia would just smirk that unpleasant smirk of hers and say it was because she was a member of the nobility. Member of the nobility or no, Roberta didn't think that gave Georgia a right to dress any differently from anybody else. St. Mary's had a rule book for a reason, dang it. You know what I mean. In these infantile games, blue always equates to being male. Maybe I just felt like a change. Sometimes I wish I had been born a boy. Life would be easier then. You're probably not wrong, though I can't speak from experience. I know what you mean. Then you should start taking feminism a bit more seriously. It certainly is true that there is a difference between the wages men and women receive, and women experience harassment based on their gender on a daily basis. It just isn't fair. I don't know why you keep telling me this stuff, Percy. It's cute that you're so enthusiastic, but I honestly don't care. What? Percy blinked at Georgia, her eyes wide. She looked like a little child who had been told Santa did not really exist. I bet you she still believes. Samantha didn't know why she looked so shocked. Wasn't this kind of arch cynicism only to be expected from Georgia? It was true that Georgia had a rather firm set of principles, but it was also true she could be very dismissive about things that didn't interest her. But you just said you think men have it easier. I think they often do, but I don't care about that enough to get all worked up like you, Percy. What's the point? It's not going to change anything. Georgia, that attitude isn't going to get you anywhere. If everybody thought like that, then nothing would get done at all. We'd still be sitting in our amphitheaters watching slaves fend off hungry lions. You're being too generous, Percy. I don't think mankind has progressed nearly as much as you think it has. Rather than putting servants to death, we have simply found new scapegoats for imagined crimes. That's what I'm telling you. That's exactly why you should care. I do care, but I don't see the point in complaining. It doesn't help. People can convince themselves that their righteous indignation has some kind of worth all day long for all I care, but I know it isn't true. The only way to truly achieve change in this world is through brute force, not nagging. That's so cynical. It's because of people like you that the Tories keep getting voted in. I'm not even old enough to vote yet. That's beside the point. Don't you care about anybody other than yourself? Nope. Oh, don't be like that. I care about you, don't I? In your own Georgia-y way, I suppose so. Well then, there's no problem. Georgia slaughtered her blue piece, which had caused such a controversy, into her car. Then she sat back with a small smile, her fingertips pressed together. So, ladies, shall we begin? Hey, Bobby, it's time to pay up. Why are you suing me? I don't even have that much money. Percy's the one winning, not me. That may be true, but I like Percy more than I like you, Bobby. Therefore, I am suing you. Do you have a problem with that? So you're willing to sacrifice your own chances of victory just to make things more difficult for me? That's about the gist of it, yes. Well, at least you're honest. I don't know if that makes it any better, though. Signed, Roberta handed over a small handful of colorful money to Georgia. Though she was irritated at Georgia's underhanded tactics, she could not fault her. She was not, after all, breaking any rules. Even when Roberta hated whatever task she was engaged in, she always followed the rules, right down to the letter. Maybe that was why she didn't enjoy board games very much. She was too serious. Thank you kindly. Georgia took the money with a grin, her pointed teeth glistening in her mouth like shards of broken glass. Oh, now it's my turn. Percy spun the spinner and landed on a 4. She moved a little car 4 squares along the track as instructed and read the information on the square where she had landed. You go on holiday to Italy. Pay £10,000. Doesn't that seem a bit steep for a holiday? Yes, but it doesn't specify how long you're in Italy for. For all we know, you could have stayed there for years. I suppose so. I don't know if the hot weather would be good for my skin, though. It might not be good for my children either. You don't have any children. They're just plastic pieces. Right now, perhaps. But someday. Do you want to be a housewife that much? I wouldn't mind it. Don't snort like that, Georgia. I love children. They're just so cute with their button noses and tiny fingers. And screaming mouths and flailing limbs, rashes and scabs and dirty nappies. Ugh. Georgia shuddered. I would rather die than have children. It would ruin my figure, too. There are more important things in life than your figure, Georgia. Next, it was Samantha's turn. Like Percy had before her, she spun the spinner. Of course, she got it too. For some reason, Samantha's spins had been decidedly pathetic throughout the game, and she was lagging far behind everybody else. Sadly enough, this felt like a suitable representation of her own life. It was so fitting she couldn't help but smile, though Riley. Getting so many low spins might have been a blessing if they had made her stop on squares that allowed her to collect more money, but that was not the case. Instead, she kept landing on squares that forced her to throw her money away. They were only halfway through the game, and she was nearing bankruptcy. At least she had a husband and 3 children to keep her company. Actually, make that 4 children. Samantha sighed as, once more, she was greeted with the news that she had given birth to yet another child. Why do you look so gloomy? The birth of a child should be a joyous occasion. It would be joyous if I had any money. We have to give you money for each child you have, though. Yes, but it won't be enough to pay for their education. Samantha bit down on her lower lip and began to chew, as she often did when troubled. It was ridiculous that a simple board game should be distressing her so much, but it was. Excuse me. If this were an indication of how her life was really going to pan out, she might as well hang herself from, oh my gosh, from the wooden rafters right there and then. Percy had been right. The game of life really was depressing. It wasn't that much more enjoyable than her real life. I'm not cut out for motherhood. I can't look after all these children. This was such a bad idea. Samantha turned to look at Roberta, who was sitting to her left. Unlike her, Roberta only had 1 child. Roberta. Yes? If I give you a couple of my children, would you look after them for me? Samantha looked at Roberta imploringly, eyes wide, determined to unleash upon her close friend a torrent of her most silver-tongued sentiments. I realize this may sound like a detriment, but in the game of life, having more children is a boon. You stand to benefit a great deal from this arrangement, given you can collect money on their lives at the end of the game. It's called forward thinking. Something that Samantha was notoriously bad at. The only thing I ask in exchange is a mere trifle. Something I am surely a good woman. Oh my gosh, why can't I read? Something I am sure a goodly woman such as herself can part with, Bobby. All I want is a little bit of money for your generosity to tide me over. Do these terms sound acceptable? Would you be willing to help a friend in need? You must be willing, for you have proven yourself time and time again to be such a reliable friend. I would expect nothing less of you, Roberta. Roberta stared at Samantha in shock, her eyes wide. Are you trying to sell your own children?